Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining. You may have noticed that I turned on the recording feature. That's so we can have this for later. If you need to share it with colleagues or refer to it at a later date, you can certainly get in touch with me and we can provide you with that recording once it's converted to an appropriate format. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Peter Graychuk with North49. I'm joined by my colleague Etienne Krobler, who is the chief architect of the customer portal, as well as our entire e-commerce line. Besides the customer portal, we also have a product called Webtelligence, which is a deeply integrated e-commerce platform to Sage 300. So that can provide you with both a business to business or a business to consumer web store, which is integrated into your Sage 300 in the back office. So there's a great deal of benefit to doing that. The customer portal is typically always part of a full e-commerce system that we would put for a customer. But because of the way it communicates, we are able to separate it. It uses a direct read of data or a live read of data from Sage 300. As opposed to the web store, which uses that, as well as some data replication, so it can be running all the time. So the implication of that is the customer portal itself stores none of your data. It reads it on demand and only serves it up when a customer asks for it. So keep that in mind, because that's sort of relevant in all the things that we're going to talk about here. It's a very secure communication, IP to IP and encrypted. And certainly if you need to explore that a bit more, we're happy to discuss that with you. I'm going to spend just a few minutes on a couple of slides to go over, some of the introductory parts, just to introduce the concepts of customer portal and why it's important. And then I'll turn it over to Etienne, who is going to give you a live presentation of the software in action. I will monitor the Q&A while Etienne is talking. So please enter questions in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. And the reason for that is they get recorded in the meeting transcript, whereas the chat does not. So if we don't get a chance to get to your questions, we can get back to you after the fact and then answer those questions. So with that, I'm going to carry on and chat about the customer portal. So this current time, this pandemic that we all find ourselves in, has really given rise to a lot of changes in how we do business. And this statement made by a gentleman who's a director of business innovation and technology at BDC, which is Business Development Canada, if you're not familiar, which is really a governmental think tank and consultancy that deals with businesses throughout Canada. But I don't think this is a sentiment that's exclusive to Canada. I believe this is a worldwide sentiment. Everybody is changing the way they are doing business, and customers' expectations have changed along with that. They've come to expect a certain level of service. They want it online, they want it on demand, they want it when they want it, and they're no longer content to sit and wait for this. When you give somebody a call and you get that obligatory recording that says, your business is very important to us. You are the 75th caller in line. So that kind of thing doesn't fly anymore. So what's really happening here is people start to experience this, and it was really driven by the bigger organizations like the Amazons and people like that, right? They came to expect a certain level of service from the people they do business with. And that started to spill over into their business lives as well. So, and with good reason. There's no reason why a business to business environment can't support the same kind of access that the business to consumer side of things did. And it's becoming an expectation now. And the beauty of that is it's not just a convenience for the customer, it's also a convenience for you, because really what it does is offloads a lot of that administrative burden that you have to field those sort of low value customer questions like, I don't know, I lost my invoice, can you resend it? How much do I owe you? Can I phone you up and give you a credit card to pay my invoice? And all this kind of thing. So this stuff gets all eliminated, frees up your people's time to do a lot more value added service to your customers as opposed to these low value tasks. Now, from the customer portal standpoint, it can be something as simple as providing a link on an invoice document or in the body of the email that says, click here to pay that invoice. Simple as that. They click it, takes them onto the payment gateway, whatever payment provider you work with. Chances are we can support them. We've got several that we support now. They simply enter their card details, and that invoice ends up getting paid. And we append that to a receipt batch inside Sage 300 for you automatically, and there's nothing really that you have to do other than post that batch. Etienne's going to show you this stuff live. I'm really just going to scratch the surface through my description here. So that's the sort of the smallest component that you can get. And if you wanted to just do that, that's fine. But there's a full customer portal in behind that as well that allows your customers to do a lot more stuff. They can pay multiple invoices. They can even place orders online. There's just a ton of stuff that they can have access to, or that you can grant them access to with their own accounts, to allow them to manage it themselves. And you have ultimate control over what you allow them to see. And that's all done through the administration side of the portal, which hopefully we get a chance to show you through the presentation. And I mentioned order entry. So, I mean, I don't want to over-characterize this as a web store. It really doesn't go quite that far, although it starts to, I guess, encroach a little bit on what a web store does. And again, we'll show you this. But it's really just a means for your customers to have access to this online order entry form so they can quickly enter an order. And it probably works best when your customers are more familiar with your products or the things they want to order, either their descriptions, or even if they know the SKU, or even their product number that you may be storing inside of Sage 300 on their behalf. And where this is also very handy is with your internal staff, whether it be customer service staff or sales staff, because there is a salesperson access to this that allows them to place orders or to interact with that customer account on behalf of that customer. So when they log in, they can place orders on behalf of that customer. So this could be used as a salesperson's portal to enter orders, or a customer service person's portal to enter orders on behalf of customers, or to take payments, or anything that that customer might do with their own account. Now, something you need to keep in mind when we talk about the portal, it is set up to be a set and forget kind of a deal. So there's a lot of stuff you can control, excuse me, in the administration back end of the portal, but it's not something that you'll go to every day to do anything with. Once you get it set up to do what it needs to do, it just works. So it's nothing you really have to worry about. The portal just keeps on doing what it does. It takes payments. It allows customers to go online and, look at their invoices, reprint documents, any of that stuff. And that's within their complete control. You don't have to be involved in any of that. So the beauty of that is, again, it offloads a lot of the burden from you, and it provides your customers with what they expect now. So with that, I believe that's the end of my little spiel. I'm going to turn it over to Etienne and let him show you the product. Etienne, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. You should see my very blank screen right now. I want to just start by reiterating something Peter mentioned, and two things actually. One, we do not store any data, which means that your data is secure. There is no kind of offshore storage of your data, as might be required by some local authorities, or prohibited by some local authorities. The data is always live. The customer is seeing what you're seeing in the system. And we are interacting with Sage in a manner which requires no import or export. There's no import of data in the morning. There's no export of and import of receipts in the evening. Things happen. Once it's been set, the system is just going to work. And that's the second point. I am going to show you a full customer portal with every little bell and whistle. You have the ability to turn these features on and off once the portal is operating the way you want to. And really, that should be kind of a half-an-hour exercise when you deploy the portal. You really never have to pay attention to it again. It will just run. So with that said, probably a good place to start would be to look at Click to Pay. Click to Pay, broadly speaking, is your ability to embed a link in a document or email or invoice that you send to the customer, and the customer can then click on that link and simply hit a pay button. And again, there's no data to import or export. If that document exists inside of your Sage 300, the customer can go ahead and pay that. The link is really quite simple. It kind of points to your customer portal, which is a unique URL for you. So you would assign a URL called customer.mydomain.com or portal.abc.com or whatever you want to assign that URL as. Probably a good idea to subdomain it under your current website domain, so that it gives familiarity to the customer. And so it'll be, yes.
Are you sharing your screen here? I don't see it.
I am so sorry, Pete. Yes, I am. Can you see it now?
I don't know.
Into share.
I can ask anybody else, any of the participants, can you type something into the chat that says you can see it or not?
I'll try again. Yeah, Steve says he can see it.
Okay, maybe it's just me then. All right, sorry.
Yeah, just you, Pete. Okay, cool. Please give us feedback in the chat if you stop seeing that. Okay, so the URL really is quite simple. It is just a pointer to your domain /QuickPay, and then you can feed the customer number and the document ID that you do want to pay. And we'll have a look in just a moment, but that typically in QuickPay or Click to Pay would be the invoice, but it could also be a different document type. And this link can be embedded in an email, on your invoice in a PDF, wherever you want to put this link to send out to a customer, send it with his invoice. You can go ahead and construct that link for him, and he can go ahead and click to and pay it. I've put it into a Word document here, which kind of serves the same purpose. Let's go ahead and click that. And the customer will then land up on a page. And remember, we fed it the document, the customer number and the document number that we want him to pay. It inserted that onto the click to pay screen, and then immediately verified if that document is correct and if it exists. So it went and fetched the invoice amount. It fetched the customer name, it fetched the invoice date, etc. By design, we very specifically are not going to show you details of this in order to prevent attempts at phishing. So we want to prevent somebody from typing in a non-existent document number and seeing if that is somehow going to match up. And so we are very vague with our error messages here, and this is truly by design. We do not want to tell you that this invoice does not belong to that customer. So we're just going to give you a very vague message here that it doesn't exist. And of course, if you type in the correct information, it goes back and verifies that document. Let's go ahead and pay this. What I have done in the background, I am running the Sage 300, which backs up this particular portal, and I'm doing so through the new Sage Azure cloud. Which, if you haven't seen that, is just the second best thing to peanut butter. Let's have a look at transactions in our receipt batch here, and you can see that our receipt batch is empty. Let's go back and pay this. So customer 1200, Ronald Black, wants to pay invoice number 61. We sent that to him in our click to pay. Let me pause just for 1 second here and add that this entire system was very much designed to also run on mobile devices. So it is an adaptive design. No matter what device you're running this on, this is going to work properly. We know that in excess of 60% of all internet access now is via mobile device. And so this is going to run well, whether you run it on a 24-inch computer screen, on your tablet, or on a cell phone. Let's have Ronald Black go ahead and pay here. So Ronald Black's going to pay with a credit card. Let's give this a good expiry date. We will fill in the relevant information that we extract from the account. If it's wrong, of course, Ronald Black is going to override this, and he can now go ahead and pay that document. No, we don't want to save that. And he immediately gets a receipt. So at this point, let's just deviate for 1 second. So this is going to be emailed out to him. It's going to be emailed to Ronald Black's account based on the email account on the AR, If he filled in his email account on the entry screen, he will get a direct copy. He can go ahead and print this or PDF, save himself a PDF copy, do whatever he wants to do with this receipt. And so he is now completely notified that this is happening. We also notify the merchant. So Sample Company Inc. is going to be notified that there was a payment made, and that notification can happen via email. So we'll send an email out saying that we have received payment, but we also integrate into two messaging platforms. The one is Slack. Slack is available for free, so if you do want to receive instant messages, Slack is an option. We also integrate into Teams. North49 uses Teams, so I've called up my Teams account here. Let me slide that into view. And I've created a team for portal notifications. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I've created a team of portal notifications. I will include here whomever I want to get notified of anything happening on my portal, and that is broken into 4 general groups. So we've got accounts receivable, so payments, new registrations. We have customer support, that's all the contact us forms. We have order entry, so you'll add all your salespeople there that needs to have a view of what's happening. And we have technical support. If for some reason we cannot communicate with your Sage 300, we are going to notify the technical support guy something's happening. And so we've set that up. We've got the contact us, portal AR, customer service, which is a bit of a duplication, portal OEM, portal tech support. And you'll see that there's now a message in portal AR. And here we go. This has happened right now, 10:15, a payment received from customer 1200, Mr. Ronald Black, paid invoice number 61 to that amount. And there you go. That is it over there. You will also see that we have a surcharge added here. So we do have the ability, as detailed as down to individual customer status, that you may add a surcharge and or fixed amount to any transaction based on the transaction type. What we've done for this portal is we've told the system that Ronald Black is going to pay a 2.5% charge on any credit card payments and a fixed $15 fee on any ACH payments, so that we can do that. The surcharge is processed accurately through Sage, and I'll show you that in just a second. So you do have the ability to do that. Because it's at customer level and we use an optional field to control that, you can still honor or exempt, if you will, at your discretion, larger contracts or customers with specific arrangements, or where there might be legal requirements for you not to charge that. For example, in California, we believe that you're not allowed to add a surcharge to credit card payments. So you can control that across your customer base in as much detail as you want to do that. Now, let me pause here for just a second, flip back to our Sage here. Remember, we said these things are being entered real time. And so here is that entry now. Ronald Black has made that payment. He paid invoice number 61. And remember, I said we will deal with the surcharge, and we do that with an adjustment. So the surcharge has now been added. We do use a distribution code, which you give the portal under your admin system, so that we know how to accurately post that surcharge into your general ledger. So these transactions are happening. They're happening automatically. You don't have to do anything. All you need to do tonight is run your normal day-end and batch processing, and these things are going to be processed into the system. I'm just going to leave that open and go back for a minute onto Click to Pay. We're spending a lot of time here, but it really is kind of exposing a lot of underlying functionality here. We have added the ability to prepay documents. So what this will do is you will be able to allow your customer to prepay, for example, an order. So they can enter the order information in here, go ahead and prepay that. We allow them to prepay a quote sitting inside of Sage 300, so they can go ahead and do that. We also allow them to do an unallocated amount. So this would be an unallocated cash payment. I'm going to demonstrate order payment inside the portal, so I'm going to skip that for here, but let me do an unallocated one here for you. And so what's going to happen is we want to start a project for Ronald Black. Really all we need to do is tell Ronald Black to come back, give him our URL and then say, click the pay invoice one. He does not have to be registered. We don't care whether he's registered on the portal or not. We need him to make a payment. So Ronald Black, come over here, put in your customer number. We do ask him a validation question here just to kind of make sure he knows who it is. So what is your zip code? And this is his zip code on the AR account inside of accounts receivable. So we are verifying this back to your Sage 300. What's your transaction reference number? And that little pause there, retrieving the name, that was just us validating this data before we allow him to enter. So request deposit, I've entered that before on project 1200. Let's get him to pay $750 on that project. I want to pay that by credit card, so go ahead and do that. And we are now going to do the same thing. It's paid by credit card, and Ronald can go ahead and do that. Okay, so Ronald has now paid that. Again, he gets this invoice. It's going to get processed everywhere. We're going to get notified everywhere that this has taken place. Here, immediately in our Teams and in Slack, we get an immediate response. A payment of $750 was received from Mr. Ronald Black. Request deposit on project that. So we know about that straight away. I'm just going to slide that out of the way. Let's go back to our Sage. There would now be a second entry added to this batch, and here it is. So we've got an unapplied cash transaction of $750 by Mr. Ronald Black, request payment on project 1200. So you'll see the integration here is real time. It's happening as it goes along. There's nothing for you to do and to react to. And when I show you the prepayment on, for example, an order, if you're waiting to ship an order, then you're going to get notified of that payment. You can go to the order and you will see that payment having happened there. So with that, then let's go have a look at the full portal. We do have multi-language capability. Currently, we have French and English. We are happy to work with anybody that wants to add a new language. We give you a list of English phrases. You give us the other language back and we'll load that up for you. So happy to work with anybody that would like to see a new language being added to the language file here. On the login screen, just very briefly, your company logo at the top. We did allocate a fairly large amount of real estate for you to do that. We make it very, very easy for you to flip these images out. And so it'll allow you to kind of add text, sample company limited, do business with us because we're the bee's knees. And so you can use this for marketing at the top and whatever other function you deem fit. The welcome message, of course, under your control, more of a welcome message over here. We do have two primary ways of registering for an account. You can let your customer simply request that you add him, or you can do self-registration, in which case you will ask the company a username, the customer number, a zip code. This will be some validation question. It can either be the zip code or the last invoice number or the last payment amount or the last payment date, for example. So you can ask a validation question. We do enforce strict password control here, so he needs to do that. These passwords are encrypted and they cannot be retrieved. They cannot be retrieved by the customer, by you, by us. So if the customer loses his password or forgets it, there is a reset function which you'll click on the screen and it will send him an email allowing him to reset his password again. When you do automatic registration, you have the ability to tell the system to grant immediate access. And so the user, if he answers the validation question correctly, will then have immediate access to the portal and his account. You will be notified of that, of course, and you have the option to notify the customer according to the, or based on the email address of the customer, that a new user has registered. And bear in mind, you can have multiple users per account. Okay, let's go ahead and log in then. The first thing that's going to happen when Ronald Black logs in is we're going to check for a potential communication between you and that customer inside of accounts receivable. And this is on the comment field on the customer record. So if we pop back in here, close that batch down, and we're going to go to customers and call up Ronald Black. And you will see that there is a comment here of type web. Dear customer, please contact us regarding your credit card that is expiring. And that comment type web is what is going to pop up when the customer logs into his account. You can turn that on and off, of course, or you just don't create a comment by the type web or comment category web. It's just not going to show up. So the customer now sees this. This is you communicating with this one customer. When he clicks OK here, we go back and we mark that comment as having been seen on the other end. So let's do that. Let's ignore this message for just a second. Go back here. I'm just wanting to navigate away from customer 1200. And now you'll see that our comment type has been changed to WebAC or Web Acknowledge, meaning the customer has acknowledged your message on the web. So you can see that the customer has seen your message, whatever that message might be, you know, hey, pay us, or Peter will come and beat up on you, or happy birthday, Bob. Whatever you want to communicate with the customer, you can do so directly from within your Sage 300, and you will know when the customer has seen that message. The second potential message the customer may see is what we call a broadcast, and that's an entire broadcast that you control across all customers logging in. And that could be everything from this month's special deal, or welcome to the portal, or if you accept these conditions, you accept our terms of usage here. And that would be a very good one, for example, to include also under your messages to the client. So if you do have a disclaimer, if you continue to use this portal, you're accepting our terms and conditions, it would be good to put it in here, because you will be able to see that the client has accepted those conditions as well. In the same manner, on a broadcast, if the customer clicks OK, we then record that the customer has seen that and he won't see it again. So I've now okayed both those messages. So when I log out again and log back in as Ronald Black, those messages do not show up again. Inside the portal, we have these functionalities, and again, you can turn them on and off based on your subscription. You may not have some of this, so if you do not subscribe to order entry, for example, you will not have order entry, and that icon simply won't be there. What is standard functionality is account activity, view transactions. Very typically, pay account would be there, which means that managed credit cards may be there. If you choose to expose that to your customers, view orders will be there, contact us will be there. Prepayments goes with pay account, so that will be there as well. Taking a brief look, account activity just gives the customer a broad overview of his account, your billing account, your current balance, your terms, codes, etc. So this is just a very broad view. The intact screen looks ever so slightly different. We could not get sales statistics for that. So the intact screen for the intact portal lists the last 3 payments and the last 3 invoices at the bottom here. I can choose to go back to my home to navigate around, or I can just navigate based on the menu up here. So view transactions, how many do I want to see per page, of course. And again, this is all going to work very well regardless of the piece of equipment you're in. We're just going to throw the transactions in underneath each other. Do I want to show all transactions or only open? Open only are going to be those transactions with a current balance. So here is your statement of account, essentially. All, of course, is going to show all regardless of the balance. So I want to remind you to look back. Remember our good old invoice number 61. We paid that, so we now have an applied amount. So when we show this to the customer, remember your customer does not necessarily know, neither should they or do they care that you're running a batch processing system. And so when they look here, they know that they've paid that account, so they want to see a zero balance right away. But when we look up a document, we will go see if there are any pending amounts in batches, and we will apply them here so that the customer sees the accurate information when they look at the screen. A customer, of course, now can go and drill down. These are all the transaction types. You can choose to hide some of them. So if you just simply do not want to show them, just don't bring them up here. But the customer can now narrow down what they want to have a look at. And we can go and drill down into a particular document. If a customer then goes and looks at the invoice number 61, he's going to get that. We will go find that document, whatever the source of it is. So it was an AR summary document. We'll show him an AR summary, AR detail, order entry. We do integrate into external systems. So for example, we've integrated into Framework, which is a pharmacy system. When a customer clicks on an invoice, we will request that invoice from Framework, and we can show the customer his prescription, his medications, his dosages, everything else that went together with that document that they received. Again, the customer can now go and print himself a copy. I'll stop saying that after this one. I almost promise. He can get himself a copy printed to a printer, PDF himself a copy, do whatever he wants to, and he now has a copy of that document. If a customer should look at, for example, a receipt of a payment, we will be able to show him what that was applied against. So if we go look at a receipt and he clicks through on a receipt, we will show him the receipt document. And if there were multiple invoices applied, of course, we'll show him those invoices down here. Yes, sir.
We do have a question with respect to single sign-on. So one of our attendees has got a situation where they're using another integrated system with Magento, with one of the other third-party developers, and is asking if there can be a single sign-on to gain access to the portal. Now, I'm assuming they mean if they've logged into their Magento web store as a user, can we take those credentials and use them to log into the portal? Because I assume is what is being referred to.
We can work with the developers of Magento to make that happen, yes.
It's just a matter of them passing the credentials to us as somebody clicks on our link on the homepage. Correct.
Now, it will be, we will require encryption. We don't want to send login credentials in raw format. So we will have to work with Magento, or the developers of that website say, this is how we want you to do it. Here is the encryption key. Here are the encryption standards that we require. And yes, then you'll be able to pass that through to us, and we'll log the user in automatically.
No, I think the integration to Sage is done through IMAN, if I'm reading this correctly. And just incidentally, IMAN also uses our customer portal, if you didn't know that. So I'm not sure if that's a difference to us or not, as to how easy it is.
Yeah, it is interesting. There are a number of ISVs that use our portal, IMAN, Orchid. And so, yeah, they are, speak to us. We will be happy to discuss that, but it will require some work on both ends to make it happen, but it can be made to happen. Okay, pay account. Before I hit pay account, just want to kind of look at your ability to store credit cards. Just to be clear, we never store a credit card. What we do is we store the token, the processing system, your processing merchant. It will vault the card and give us a token, which we will store. And you then have the option, depending on who you use for your payment processor. And as Pete mentioned earlier, we will integrate to all major payment processors. I think at the moment we integrate to about 10 of them. And we definitely intend to continue broadening that. But if you have an integrated one, so Paya, for example, you have the option to tell the system to either store the card just on our side, so it's just a token stored on the web, and what the user will see here are those tokens stored here, or to store it directly inside of Sage 300. This particular portal I am using Paya. And so the credit cards can be stored directly in the system, which is what we're doing here. So here we can see two credit cards. One is expired and one is active. We go look at that customer account over here again. you will see that there are 3 cards, but one is inactive. So we will not show an inactive card for the user. So the user is seeing these 2 active cards, the one of which is expired. Here is my date. So this card here, the MasterCard has expired and the Visa card is active, and that's what the customer is seeing on his screen here. When the customer hits delete, we will never delete the token because you might still have a transaction in process on the other side, and we will mark it as inactive, so it will disappear off the customer's view, but the card is still available for you to deal with internally inside of your Sage 300. So for this customer, we actually are storing these cards. If the customer adds a card here, we're going to add it inside of your Sage 300, and it will be visible for you in there as well. Go ahead and pay our account. This is sample data, of course, so probably an unusually long list here. The customer, of course, can just go and select all and pay his account all in one, or he can go ahead and select individual invoices here. Remember, we paid 61 earlier, so I'm just going to pay the rest. We do give the guy the ability to just kind of click on a particular document and see what's there. Let's find somebody with a little more detail. So he will be able to see what he's paying for. There's not a drill down at this point, because in a web environment, if we drill down, we lose context of what he's selected and hasn't selected, but he certainly can make sure that the document contains the detail that he wants to pay. So let's go ahead and pay this now. The options to pay is going to depend somewhat on your processor. This processor does allow check or ACH. We will select a card. If he has stored a card and designated a default card, we will select that option. So when the customer gets here, really all he needs to do is hit make payment and go ahead and make that payment. Remember, I did say we do charge a surcharge. We allow you to put a message on here for the customer so they understand that. If he selects ACH, we're going to change that to a fixed $15 fee. If he goes credit card, we will calculate the fee and put it in there, and the customer now can go ahead and make that payment. Because he gave us the credit card at that point, we do not bring up that credit card form again. It's not necessary. The next thing the customer is going to see is going to be his receipt. You can go ahead and print that. I promised I wouldn't show that again, but let's go back into our Sage, have a look at that. Transaction processing, receipt batch processing, and I'll stop showing this as well because I think you get the idea that we do update these things real time as we go ahead. So here is that payment made over there. There were emails sent out. Here is my notification in Teams. Let me show you that email because I would have gotten a copy of it. So here it is. Ronald Black has paid us. This is actually sent to Ronald Black. This is his copy. I do have a copy on my side that came to the merchant, and this is just going to tell him what he's paid, etc. So there's a whole bunch of notifications going out, letting Ronald Black know that we've received payment from him. Let me move on to order entry or view orders. So view orders is a standard function. It's not an additional subscription. You can turn it on and off. Incidentally, some of our largest users of the portal do not use order entry. We have the Port Authority of the Grand Bahama Port Authority, do not use order entry. Pacific Financial, do not use order entry. And so you do have the ability to turn these functions on and off, remove them off the screen for the user. If you are using order entry, then there's some really cool functionality here. First of all, we do allow a quick look, so we can just click on a document. We can have a look at the document. We do allow a detailed drill down, so the customer can get himself a copy of that particular document again. When we look across the top, same thing, the number of orders per page or not. Do I want to show all or open only? Open only again are only those orders which have not completely shipped. Which document types do I want to have a look at? And then either view by order, which is the view we're getting here, or view by detail, so view by item. View by item is going to give the customer a list of his back-ordered items. Essentially, that is what that translates to. In the actual view, If a document has been shipped, we know that, of course, and so we can have a look at that, and the customer can then click down into that shipment and see the shipment details. If there was tracking information, they can see that here. If they're invoice or multiple invoices, they'll be listed here, and from here you can drill down into that invoice and have a look at that as well. So we do allow him to drill down. The status column here, there are two options. One, we can glean the status just based on the document. So we know an order has been received, or it's on hold, or it's partially shipped, or it's shipped. So whatever that might be, we can glean that simply by looking at the particular record inside of order entry. But we also give you the option to use an optional field. And if you use an optional field, we'll put the contents of the optional field in here. And that allows you to almost infinitely expand on this concept of the status. So order received, order being reviewed, order going into production, order in production, expected out in 7 days, preparing for shipment, on the truck, whatever you want to then use, we can then put that in here so you can refine what you feedback to the customer in terms of the order status to the nth degree, which is really cool. Second function which we allow here is when I show you order entry, we do allow the customer to post a quote, or you of course can generate a quote internally, and the customer can then come and have a look at that quote. So let's have a look at a couple of quotes here. We have quote number 4 and 5. Quote number 5 says approved, and I'll get to that in just a second. Quote number 4 says waiting for approval. So here are those two quotes that we have issued the customer, or that the customer has requested. If you allow a customer to post a quote on the portal, you're really creating an RFQ. Give me a quote on this. The quote comes into your system, you review that, and then when you're ready, you can release that quote, and the customer can see that over here. And again, we use an optional field here to do that. So quote number 4 here has been approved, meaning we've set the optional field to true. So the quote is ready to go. If you've done that, the customer then has the ability to come in here and turn that quote number 4 into an active order. So if the customer then does that, let's just cancel this for a second, have a look. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 lines on here. I want 10, 10, 15, 5 of these items, right? And he wants to go ahead and turn that into an order. So go ahead and confirm that order process in the background. And the system is then going to create that, and it created order number 77. So if we flip back over here and we go look at order entry, we expect order number 77 to be the last order, of course. Let me call up my finder. There we go. Here is order number 77, and here are the 4 items that was placed on that order, 10, 10, 15, 5. Likewise, if the customer at this point refreshes his screen, we're going to show him order number 77. There's order number 77 placed. You'll see that order quote number 5 is waiting for approval. So if we go back in here just for a second and we call up quote number 5, here is quote number 5. There is an optional field here called quote release that is set to no. If we go set quote release to yes, and we simply post that document, so we've reviewed that quote, we go back here, let's refresh the screen, and quote number 5 will now be approved and ready for the user to turn into an active order. Okay, so we've added so much more functionality to the system to allow you to control, to take orders, feedback to the customer, etc. We did not deal with prepayment, so I'm just going to take a detour here very quickly and show you prepayment. So if we have a look at prepayments, we can see that there are essentially 3 types. You can turn these on and off. So if you have no interest in allowing prepayments on orders, just simply don't show that here, and likewise for quotes, but the customer can now do that. So here is prepayment, where we're going to ask him for a quote reference. This is an unallocated cash transaction, and here are the actual documents that can be paid. Sorry, I just want to close my blinds. I have the sun beautifully streaming into my office here, and I can't see my screen. And so here is order number 72, 77, order number 65, all waiting for payment. So let's go ahead and pay invoice number 77. Again, here is a drill down. This is what's on order number 77. I'm going to go back over here and just call up order number 77 for us. Really, oh, that's the one we just created, of course. Things actually work well. So here's order number 77. We just did create that. We then call up the guy and we want him to make a prepayment. So of course we can process that prepayment over here if we want to. Let's go have a look at the totals. There is no prepayments made on this document at all. So the outstanding amount of this order is $911. So let's go back here. We want him to prepay this document for us. So, hey, Ron Black, go ahead and prepay this for us so we can ship it for you, please. And so he's going to go ahead and make that payment. He's already got all of that selected, so there's really no need for him to fill in any detail here. He can just go ahead and say, make the payment. He's got a receipt for it, $911.03. Let's go back here. We'll navigate away from this for just a second, come back to it, and you will now see that order number 77 has a prepayment of $911 processed against that. The outstanding order total there is 0. And just to complete the cycle, if we go back to our batch over here that's being maintained and updated as we go along, here is our prepayment, 911 against order number 77. Once we turn that order into invoice, Sage is going to match that payment up and that invoice is going to be paid. Is that not cool? Okay. I'm pretty excited about this. I think it really is very cool technology. So we've gone through all of that. Let's end off with order entry on just having this look at the portal at the customer side. As Pete said, we don't think of this as a replacement to a full e-commerce system. It really has very specific application. We do read directly out of Sage, of course. Let me again say this is going to work well regardless of the piece of equipment that you're doing this on. These are shipped to addresses on the customer account, and of course you can enter a new one. This is going to go through to order entry, as you may expect. My PO number, let's just go demo 2021 0908. And I want to request a delivery date at the end of the month. Please ship this via Global Freight. We know that this is very often an internal facing code, so you have the ability to hide that, so the customer may or may not be able to enter this. And then please ship this demo order ASAP. And when we are happy with that, we can even slide that out of the way if we want to and just make the screen more readable. The items, again, remember, we don't have any of this data on our side, so we are sending through a request for matching items when the user types them in here. There are 3 levels of showing them, so I'll just show you all 3 of those. You can turn this on and off if you want to. So the most basic one is just I want to enter just simply the details. So I'll go enter a calculator in here, and we're going to bring that up. Let me pause here for a second. When we find an item, we will look at the SKU number, the description, the 4 additional item lines, and if you want to, also the customer item number. So the customer can type in his own item number here, and we're going to find that for you, provided, of course, you've got that running inside of Sage 300. So finding an item is really based on keywords. And if you choose, you can have one of the 4 additional item information lines with keywords, and we're going to find that document for you. The price that comes up is going to be the price for that customer as it would appear in Sage. We honor the price list, any contract pricing, sale pricing, etc. We are going to show him the correct price. You have the ability to allow a customer to override a price, or just a salesperson. So if you expose this to your salespeople, they will be able to override the price if you choose to let them do that. Likewise, unit of measures, depending on what units of measure you expose and should we show them, you can choose to sell in a single unit of measure online, or to expose all units of measure that you may or may not have in the system. So really, this is going to follow all the rules of Sage 300 as you go through processing here. Second level of detail that you may want to show a customer, if we look for a calculator again, is going to be just the 4 additional item information lines. So we're going to fetch that and we're going to show that up for the user here. So the user gets a little bit more. Let's just order 2 of these now. And the user can go ahead and add this to his cart. The third level is we can actually show pictures. So you may choose to store pictures somewhere, either on your own servers or on your website. If you're integrating into a Magento website, just give us the URL of where those pictures will be, and we'll go find them, provided, of course, you named them accordingly. Or you can store them on the portal. So if we go ahead and look for a calculator again, I'm just going to choose one with a picture this time. We have the ability to show picture or multiple pictures for the user as they go ahead and process. I'm going to order 3 of those guys there. So order entry here really intended to be a method to really quickly process the order. If you have turned that on, the customer may place a quote and or an order, and you will control this for your particular portal in your admin site. So let's go ahead and place this order. I'm expecting order number 78 here. Cool. 77 was the last one. Remember, we did that. Customer now can, of course, get a copy, and this order is going to be sent out via an order confirmation as well. So here we have it. Hey, Ron Black, thank you for your order. Here is your order processed for you. Remember our good old Microsoft Teams. Teams now has a portal order, and here is the order that we process. We order 1, 2, and 3 of those things, and so you're immediately aware of what's going on your portal. Client likewise, if he goes back to view orders, he's going to see order number 78 processed there, and he's got 1, 2, and 3 of those over there. So we are looking directly at your Sage 300. We are posting into it. Everything is going to be real-time and online and correct because there's a single source of data. There's nothing you have to do. Once your portal is running, you do not have to synchronize, you don't have to import, you do not have to export. Everything is going to happen the way in which you expect it to happen. I'm going to ask if there's any more questions, and then I think I have a few minutes just to give you kind of an extremely high-level overview of just running through your admin portal very quickly. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them. I see there's a number of chats. I don't know.
Oh, no, they're all answered, Ed, and you can go ahead.
Okay. Before I do, just very briefly, if you do create a salesperson account, what's going to happen is when the salesperson logs in, is going to get a screen, and I'm going to say I want to work with Ronald Black. And again, we search multiple things, including the phone number. You type in the guy's phone number, we're going to find him here. Ronald English now has not seen the COVID message, so we're going to show him that. And now I'm transacting on behalf of him, and I'll be able to do whatever I need to do. If I want to work with a different customer, I just click change, and I can now call up a different customer. Let me log into as an admin. These Azure things here, just because we're on an Azure portal, or a portal running on an AR Sage in Azure. When I log in as a admin, the first thing I'm going to see is somewhat of a dashboard that tells me the activity of my system. So how many receipts, both in value and in number and in value, being processed through my system. How many people are logging in? Are there any unprocessed receipts? That would mean that something went wrong and that receipt did not land in my Sage. I can go ahead and reprocess them, and they'll just drop in. Very unusual, because it means something goes wrong from the moment the guy selects to pay a document until the receipt comes back from the payment gateway. Something happened that we no longer have contact with your Sage. So that should be extremely rare. You will get notified that via email and Slack and everything else. If that ever happens, you can come in here, log in, hit the process button, and it's going to try and reprocess those documents. Let's just have a quick look at users. Allows you to control users, add users, activate, deactivate them, add salespeople, etc. We spoke about the broadcast message. Here is our broadcast message, and if I hit the reset button, it's going to reset that broadcast. Everybody's going to see it again. Let's have a look at receipts. We made this very powerful. This is all the receipts that were processed through your system. If something had gone wrong, it would kind of look like that. If it did look like that, you were going to get that message when you came home here, that there is one unprocessed message here, and you can go deal with it. When you deal with it, you can just hit the payment. There will be a reprocess button up there, and you can try and reprocess that. Otherwise, you can just look at the details and see all the details, what was applied, what wasn't, etc. And you'll be able to see exactly what's happening here. So remember, we paid 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And before that, we paid document order number 61. And so that's going to be in here. Sorry, that was that unallocated payment of $750, and here is invoice number 61 that we paid. It allows you to go find. We'll find by date, by amount. You really want to make it possible for you to troubleshoot any sort of payment issues that may arise. Let's have a look at settings. This controls how you want to register. Remember that flag allow on web in AR. You may choose to use that or not. If you turn that on, then that flag has to be set in AR before a user can register online. Typically, if you turn that off, everybody can. Remember our security question, what do you want to do over here? That logo, we said it's easy to upload a logo or not, so that will make it really easy for you to just swap out this logo, your default language file, your welcome message, all controlled from here. It's really easy to go and change that. Features and functions, remember we said we can turn on and off things. So if you don't want prepayments, you can turn them off over here and they just won't appear. If you do have prepayments, which ones do you want to allow? So do you want to turn off quotes, for example, and they won't appear on your system? Where do you want to store credit cards and so on? What documents do you want to display? And then your custom URL you'll fill in over here, and that will point at that. Payment processing, this is going to allow you to set up payment processors if you want multiples. Remember, a payment processor is only valid for a particular currency. So you may want to set up one for US dollars and Canadian, for example, or US dollars and euro. Remember our additional charges. We want a distribution code, the message that we're going to show up on the screen. Do you want to limit the amount? Do you want to allow partial payments? So allow partial payments will allow the user to override the amount that they are going to pay online. Notifications. Just very briefly, here's where you set that up. An email account for technical AR contact, order entry contact, and contact us. An email, and of course you can make that a distribution list, so you can send this to, support at North49, and 5 people will get it, whatever that might be. Your Slack integration, your Teams integration, these things are so simple to set up. Slack will take you to Slack. It'll ask you to log in, says which channel do you want to post this in. You select a channel, you hit allow. It's going to generate what's called a webhook. You paste that webhook in here and you're integrated. Really is that simple. We also allow you to turn on a notification directly to the customer for any new users. So, Ronald Black will get notified if any user registers for his account, and if any orders are created, this will get sent out to the email address for that particular user. And I think with that, I'm going to take a deep breath and say, I think I'm done. Pete, have I missed anything that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I think you covered everything there, and we're getting real close to the top of the hour, so maybe we should work towards wrapping up here. So if you can stop sharing yours, I'll reshare mine, and we can just get to the final stages and then see if there's any more questions.
Thank you.
So here is pricing, which is always something that comes up in all these topics, and I think you'll find it surprisingly inexpensive. We've got both Canadian and US pricing listed here for all these various components. So the standard is the customer portal, which you see in that left-hand column there. Just talks about all the things you get. The other components you can get to add on would be online payments, and it includes anything that has to do with payments. That's stored cards and surcharges and prepayments and click to pay. That's all part of the online payments. And the only other add-on is the quick order entry, which we spoke about, and that's indicated there. Sorry, there is one more add-on, and that is the framework LTC integration Etienne spoke about, but that's very specialized for pharmacy customers. So I don't think I noticed anybody from a pharmacy on our call today. So something I want to make sure everyone's aware of, that we do require a Sage user license, and we will occupy that Sage user license basically full time. So if you don't have any spares, which most people don't, you'll probably need to acquire one. So talk to your Sage partners and they can get that for you. And we do require access to your internal static IP address to receive communication from our static IP address to receive an encrypted communication. So there will be some firewall settings that we need to deal with in order to allow this live communication back and forth. And outside of that, I believe that is about it. This is how to get a hold of us. Last chance for any questions for anyone. And again, we will have this recording available afterwards. So if you would like to get a hold of it, just get in touch with me and we can make that available to you probably through our YouTube channel. So don't see any questions coming in, Etienne. So I think you're fairly thorough in your description, or it's overwhelming amount of information and people still need to absorb it. So with that, I say thank you very much for your time, and we hope to hear from you soon, and hopefully we can get you set up with a customer portal. Thank you very much, everybody.